Imagine that you visit the nearby park with your family one evening. You might see some adults with their children, children of different ages playing together, and elderly people walking and talking. Here you observe human beings of various age groups, which in turn represents the different stages of the life cycle, right? You already know that the humans are sexually reproducing organisms and their life cycle includes developmental stages before birth, then newborn baby, child, adolescence, stage of the life period. Do you know that the fetus develop from a zygote? During sexual reproduction, the male and the female gametes together make the zygote, which then undergoes the various developmental stages before the childbirth. Being viviparous organisms, human females carry the developing fetus in the uterus and provide it with nutrition and prenatal care. But do you know the name of the developmental stage which becomes embedded in the uterine endometrium for implantation? What are the different developmental stages that the fetus undergoes before childbirth? And how do these developing stages obtain nutrition from their mother? Let's discuss the important events of pregnancy and the embryonic development in humans and their hormonal regulation to find out these answers to all these questions. We will also discuss the process of childbirth and lactation in this video. So let's begin this journey together. Let's discuss some significant terms and concepts first. The sequence of events starting with fertilization leading to implantation and then embryonic and fetal development and finally the childbirth together constitute the pregnancy. It spans from the last menstrual period of the female to 38 or 40 weeks and it is also called the gestation period. The gestation period varies in different organisms. For instance, it is about 63 days in dogs, 617 days in elephants, and 63 to 67 days in cats. The development from the fertilized egg to 9 months is called the embryonic development, as the developmental stages from the fertilization through the 8th week are collectively termed as an embryo. The developmental stages from the 9th week to childbirth constitute the fetal development, and the developmental stages are collectively called as a fetus. The zygote develops into a morula or a blastocyst on a day 4 or 5 after fertilization. The blastocyst become loosely and then firmly attached to the uterine endometrium about 6 days and 7 days after fertilization, which leads to the implantation and then pregnancy. So let's now check the structure of a blastocyst. The outer layer of the blastocyst is called the trophoblast, while the inner group of cells formed by the inner cell mass is called the inner cell mass or the embryoblast. So I have a doubt here. The implanted blastocyst must acquire the nutrients and oxygen for development. But how do the nutrients and oxygen reach the mother to the implanted embryo? The answer is a placenta, which begins to develop in the 2nd week of pregnancy and is well formed by the 3rd week. So let's discuss how the placenta is formed. The trophoblast of the implanted embryo develops the finger-like projections during the 2nd week of development. And these projections are called the chorionic villi and they extend into the endometrium of the uterus. Soon, the chorionic villi of the embryo and part of the endometrium of the uterus become intertwined to make the structure called the placenta. Can you tell what is the function of this unique connection between the mother and the fetus? First and foremost, the placenta serves as a site of the exchange of nutrients and waste between the mother and the fetus. The placenta facilitates the diffusion of oxygen and the nutrients from the maternal blood into the fetal blood. It also allows the diffusion of carbon dioxide and waste from the fetal blood into the maternal blood. Here, you should know that the placenta is connected to the embryo and then the fetus by the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord has got two arteries, one vein and supporting connective tissues. I have a doubt here. If the placenta allows the exchange of substances, can pathogens from the maternal blood affect the fetus? The answer depends on the kind of the infection, as a placenta does not allow most microbes to pass through it. But some pathogens such as AIDS virus and poliovirus can cross it. Another function is that the placenta also serves as a temporary endocrine structure and secretes hormone that sustains the pregnancy. So let us now try to understand the different hormones produced. Human chorionic gonadotropin, that is the HCG, which is the indicator of the pregnancy and it is detected by the home pregnancy test. Another hormone is the human placental lactation or the HPL, which prepares the mammary glands for the production of milk. Estrogens and progesterones are required to maintain the pregnancy. And these hormones also inhibit the menstrual cycle during the pregnancy. And finally, the hormone relaxin. The relaxin mediates the childbirth by dilating the cervix during the childbirth. The levels of cortisol, prolactin and thyroxine along with estrogen and progesterone are also increased during the pregnancy to support the proper growth of the fetus. So the placenta makes nutrients available for the developing fetus. Let me ask you a question here. Nutrients and other required hormones are available at the development site. But how does the inner cell mass of the blastocyst transform into a fully developed baby ready for birth? Now let us discuss the main events of the fetal development to answer this question. After the formation of the placenta in the second week of the pregnancy, the third week of the development includes the differentiation of the inner cell mass into a three-layered structure composed of ectoderm, mesoderm and an endoderm. And these three layers are called the primary germ layers. Various tissues and organs of the body of the fetus develop from these three embryonic tissues. For instance, the mesoderm is a source of bone, cartilage and other connective tissues, while all the nervous system is derived from the ectoderm. The epithelial lining of the body cavity and certain organs and glands develop from the endoderm. The process of formation of the three primary germ layers, that is the ectoderm, mesoderm and the endoderm, marks the beginning of the gastrulation, and this developing stage is called the gastrula. Since the cells of the inner cell mass develop into the germ layers which then form the various tissues, certain cells of the inner cell mass are called the stem cells. Stem cells have the potential to form all the tissues and organs present in the body of an individual. Now it's time to learn the major events of the embryonic development of humans. The formation of the heart of the embryo occurs after 1 month of the pregnancy. In the fourth week, limb buds are formed and the heartbeat is noticeable. The limb buds begin to divide in the fifth week and the fingers and toes are developed within the sixth week. All the organ system are developing by around 2 months of pregnancy. By the third month or 12 weeks, the gender is distinguished by ultrasound, as the external genitals are well developed. The fetal movements are felt by the mother in the 5th month of the pregnancy. By the 6th month or the 24 weeks of pregnancy, the body is covered by fine hairs called languor. The fetus opens its eyes in the 7th month. By the 9th month, the fetus is ready for birth. Do you know that the process of childbirth is called parturition? I have a question here. What propels the fetus out of the uterus, or what is the process of parturition? Let us discuss this. The high levels of progesterone inhibit the uterine contractions during pregnancy. By the end of the gestation period, the estrogen level in the mother's blood increases, which makes the uterine muscles sensitive to oxytocin. The process begins with the fetal ejection reflex, which includes signals for childbirth from a fully developed fetus and placenta. These signals induce a response in the form of mild contractions, which then triggers the release of oxytocin. The oxytocin released from the maternal posterior pituitary stimulates the uterine contractions, while the hormone relaxin from the placenta assists the oxytocin. The uterine contractions during the parturition is regulated by a positive feedback cycle in which the uterine contractions push the baby into the cervix. The receptors of the stretched cervix send information to the hypothalamus, which then synthesizes more oxytocin released in blood by the posterior pituitary gland. The increased level of oxytocin stimulates even more forceful contractions of the uterus, and the baby's body stretches the cervix even more. This ongoing positive feedback cycle results in the expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through the birth canal. I have a doubt here. What happens to the placenta after childbirth? After childbirth, the placenta is also ejected out of the uterus. Since oxytocin stimulates the uterine contractions, doctors inject this hormone to facilitate the childbirth. Let me ask you a question here. Does a newborn require food as we all do? If yes, what is the source of nutrition for a newborn baby? The newborn baby obtains the nutrition from the mother's milk. The process of production and the ejection of milk from the mammary glands is called lactation. You might ask a question here. How does the lactation occur? Is the process of lactation controlled through hormones or through the nervous system? Let us find out. The prolactin hormone from the anterior pituitary gland stimulates the production of milk in mammary glands. The ejection of milk from the mammary gland is regulated by a positive feedback cycle in which the suckling of the baby stimulates the receptors of the mammary gland, which then signals the release of oxytocin. The released oxytocin induces the contraction of mammary gland cells to facilitate milk ejection. The secretion of mammary glands during the first few days after the birth is called colostrum. It is not nutritious but has got antibodies to protect the infant during the first few months of life. The secretion of true milk begins on the 4th day of childbirth. Now that we have learned the structure and the functions of the reproductive system in humans, so can you tell what would happen if any organ of the system malfunction? Can pathogen infect the reproductive structures and cause some diseases? If yes, what would be the mode of transmission and preventive measures for these infections? More importantly, what are the conditions that render a couple unable to conceive despite sexual intercourse? We will discuss the reproductive health in the next video to find out the answers to the above questions. Now, let us summarize what we have learned.
Manorama Horizon. Learning made simple.